Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new tUnE-yArDs record, Nikki Nack. This is the third full-length LP from multi-instrumentalist, singer, songwriter Merrill Garbus in this project, as well as her bassist and frequent collaborator Nate Brenner. And even though tUnE-yArDs is only a few albums deep into this project so far, they have already built a really strong name for themselves and a really distinct sound. For one, very lively, layered drum beats that are pulled straight out of the African tradition. The rhythms on this record are just so detailed, they're rickety, they're noisy, but they're really nicely executed and tightly pulled together. The grooves on this thing are irresistible, whether the drums are live, or we're getting some drum loops, or there are some synthetic drums being woven into the mix, with a lot of the melodies of these tracks being brought by Merrill's voice, or some light synthesizer accompaniment, or Nate's bass lines. And the lyrics on this thing I like a lot too. I think there's a lot to like with what Merrill Garbus is saying on this record. Sometimes the songs on here address some sort of personal struggle, like on the opener, Find a New Way, or bring some societal satire to the table, like Real Thing. And there are plenty more moments on this record where the lyrics just bring pure humor or absurdity, sort of like on the interlude here, which is a weird narrated spoken word dystopian future that involves cannibalism. I guess I just like that this record just has so few lyrical inhibitions, and as a result, I think Merrill makes a lot of really bold and fun and memorable statements. Another thing I love about this record, Merrill's voice. It may actually be my favorite thing about this record. She has so much personality, pitch, and power, passion. Every time she harmonizes with herself, with background vocals on this record, it is near perfect. And this happens whether she is very gently, beautifully crooning on one of the ballads here, on one of the slow burners, or when she's just wildly squawking on a track like Rocking Chair, where she's really digging in and, really starting to put a little bit of a rasp or just some grit on her singing too. And even though I think there is a lot of technical execution to her voice, there's a lot of greatness to the way that she sings, still, her voice is not really for everyone. It's a bit of an acquired taste, I think. It's just a very unusual timbre than I think many people are used to hearing women sing in. Even though Merrill has a really beautiful and feminine falsetto, the low end of her voice tends to run a little androgynous, or maybe even sounds a bit like a bleating sheep or like a large bird of some sort. But despite these quirks, Merrill is still a really great singer whose voice is incredibly soulful. And as far as the songwriting goes on this LP, I think it's super tuneful, I think it's super tasteful, much more than her last full-length LP, Who Kill. And I don't really think the songwriting disappoints on this LP either. I think Merrill does a great job of bringing the usual level of oddity that goes into a tUnE-yArDs record, but is able to bring some really great choruses and some very sticky melodies to the table too, whether that be on some of the ballads, like on Wait for a Minute, which is one of the more beautiful songs on this record, and Merrill does a fantastic job of sort of throwing the song off kilter a little bit with these vocals that that sort of throw off the timing of the song. Then there's the song Look Around, another great ballad on here, but it's sort of in a weird 9/8 time signature where a beat sort of gets thrown off on the back end of the bar. And the hard-hitting bangers, you could call them, or the single-worthy moments on here like Water Fountain, I think are fantastic too. Or the song Cinco, which I think has a bit of a disco influence to it, like a bit of a post-punk thing going on. And then there's the closer Man-Child on here, which is one of the few moments in popular music where for the last track of the song, you may hear the artist put the weirdest moment of the entire record right at the finish, as opposed to like just a tear-jerker or a really sad track to kind of bring the whole thing to an emotional climax. And this is completely fine to me. It fits in with the overall theme of the record, unexpected surprises, being relentlessly playful, seeking to make truly fun, poppy music that doesn't hold itself to a whole lot of standards, because as memorable and as infectious as this record is, and as, hardcore it is into these verse, chorus, verse song structures, Merrill does a good job of finding a way to throw a weird wrench into the works with most of the songs here. The sound of the record is really kooky, for lack of a better word. Again, sort of like on the song Man-Child, where some of the effects playing throughout the track sound just kind of cheap or silly, but this song, like others on here, is one of the more bold and political statements on the entire record, with Meryl kind of staunchly declaring that, you know, this is my body, no means no, yes means yes. Ah! It's one of the few moments on this entire LP that's just a slight overload. And this was also a problem on Who Killed that dropped a few years ago, but it's not as great an issue for me personally. You know, there's not a moment on this record to me that feels like the song Gangsta, which I don't even want to get into why I don't like that track. But still, being bombastic and being in your face and being super colorful is part of what has made tUNE-yArDs one of the more unforgettable musical acts to break out over the past several years. For sure, Meryl can get a little annoying sometimes, but she's also incredibly bold and creative. So I went into this new record hoping that she would find more creative, tasteful, and novel ways to apply this weirdness that this project just seems to be bursting at the seams with, and I think that happened. In my opinion, this is a great listen. I think it's the shot in the arm that pop music needed this year. The reminder to wake up and experiment a little, bring some primal or unusual rhythms to the table, just futz around with vocals a little bit, or layering and instrumentation. Just go wild rather than be obsessively concerned with smooth, sexy, slick, or trendy, or nostalgic, or politically correct, or appealing. This is Meryl's best set of tracks yet. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on this thing. Tran, give me away, give me away. If you've given this record a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, tUNE-yArDs, Nikki Nack, forever.